Hey everyone, John with Vermont Homesteader, and today me and Sarah we're making homemade salsa. And these are the ingredients: garlic, apple cider vinegar, lime, lemon, cilantro, tomato paste, onions, tomato, diced, jalapenos, green peppers, and corn and black beans. I'm not going to give you the exact amounts of each just because everybody's tastes are different. Some people like more garlic, some people like more onion, some people want it spicier, so they'll put more jalapenos in it. So it's just something that you have to experiment with. And if you see my hands are dirty today, it's not because they're dirty, it's because I've had them in black beans and they've actually stained my hands. But I won't bore you with this. We cut all this up before I started the video, and now we're going to put it in the food processor, and we're going to get it till it's diced, like these tomatoes. You want chunks about this big, just like the diced tomatoes, and we're going to do that with the onions, the jalapenos, and the green peppers. And then we're going to mix it all together, half in one pot, half in another pot, and then we're going to put it in canning jars, and we're going to have our salsa made. So I'll take you through that process, and I hope you enjoy this video. So we have these two stock pots, and we're not cooking this, but we need to separate it into two different stock pots, because eventually we're going to put, well, one, it won't fit all in one, and two, we're going to we just need to make sure we have equal amounts of ingredients. So we're going to take the tomato and the beans and corn. We're going to measure out half of each and dump it in each stock pot. And I'm going to start grinding these three things: the hot peppers, the onions, and the regular peppers. And then we're going to put equal amounts in each stock pot. And then we're just going to mix it all together. And then it's going to go in our canning jars, and we're going to start the canning process after that. So we're going to start by doing our easy ingredients. So I'm just taking some of the corn and beans, 2 cups at a time, so we get equal amounts in each pot. Of course, I cleaned the table off before we started because you're always spilling some on the table. And if the table's nice and clean, you can just scoop it off the table and throw it in the pot. There's probably about half a cup left for each pot. Don't do that. Got some other easy ingredients here. We separated our garlic for each pot. Got our cilantro. One, two per each. And we like to use our own ingredients, but it's so early in the growing season that we did not have our own ingredients. enough of our own ingredients yet. So we were stuck with buying stuff from the store. Half of this can. So we got about half the ingredients in. I'm going to clean up some of this mess and start grinding, and I'll be right back. So I have 2 cups of jalapenos, and you don't want to make these mush. You just want to get them diced. Perfect. We just do this a little at a time. So this is 2 cups. 2 cups will go in one pot, and then we'll do 2 cups in another. And I think that'll probably cover all the jalapenos. And we'll do the same thing with the regular peppers and the onions. It's really important you don't turn this to mush. You just want them diced. Okay, 2 more cups of jalapenos. Do the same thing with these peppers, 2 cups at a time. And we're doing 2 cups at a time just so we know we get equal amounts roughly in each pot, so that when you go to put them in jars to can, you have a good mix. You don't have too much any one ingredient in each jar. And lastly, some red onions. doesn't chop them all. So just pull those out and throw them in again. So we got everything in the pots, and we're just going to give each one a really good stir. Mix everything up real well. Oh, it smells so good. Looks good. It's going to be such great salsa. It's so good sometimes you just want to eat it with a spoon, even if you don't have any chips. At some point this year, we're going to teach ourselves how to make our own tortilla chips, and I think we're going to buy ourselves a small grinding mill so we can take our own corn or other grains and grind them so we can make our own homemade tortilla chips. Big onion, just going to break it up some. And here's what it looks like, the finished product. And it's ready for the canning jars. Here's the other pot. You can see the consistency of the salsa, and when you cook this in the canning jars, it is going to bring out a little bit more liquid, and that's why we try and drain so much liquid to begin with. We drain the corn, the beans, and the tomatoes. They're like the first things we open if we get them out of cans, and they're the first things that we'd probably grind. The tomatoes would be if we used our own tomatoes, because they carry a lot of liquid, a lot of water, and you want to drain as much of that as you can out of them before you put them in here. Otherwise, you'll have pots that have a lot of liquid in them, and you don't want that. So for the canning process, we have a funnel, quart jars. That's how we put our salsa in. It's usually quart jars, wide mouth, I like. These are bands. And then lids. The quart jars are all reusable unless you crack or break one, then I would throw it away. And as long as you wash them and store them someplace where they're not going to get dirty, they're reusable. The bands are also reusable until they get rusty, then you want to get rid of them. The lids, I would highly recommend getting new lids every single time, because you can see they have this sticky sealant. It's not sticky now, but once it gets heated up in the pressure canner, it will stick itself to the top of the jar very tightly, and it loses some of that once you use it once. So I would get new lids each time. And we're going to fill these quart jars with our salsa, and then we're going to pressure can. So this is a pretty simple process. You just take your quart jar, take some of your salsa, and you just fill it to within 1 inch of the top. And to do that, you're going to want to give it a good shake every once in a while. If you shake it, it will settle, and it'll give you an accurate reading of what you have in there. And if you overfill it, just take some out. You don't want it any closer than an inch headspace. And an inch headspace is right about where the neck is here. So we can put just a little bit more in this one. That should do it. Now the most important thing in any canning process, as far as I'm concerned, is getting as many air bubbles out as possible. And you just do that by taking something, this is the back of a spatula, to poke at it, and air bubbles will come out. If you don't get all the air bubbles out, or as many as you can get, the lids will pop off during the canning process, or the jars will break. And it'll create a huge mess on the inside of your canner. Then you just put a lid on, and then a band, and you want it hand tight. And that's it. And then I'll show you how we do the canning. So we ended up filling 20 quart jars with salsa. And just a couple things I forgot to mention. After you get the bubbles out, you should wipe off the rim of the jar. A lot of times I just use my finger, but you can use a paper towel, a dry washcloth, anything, just to wipe off any excess salsa or whatever you're canning. Wipe it off the lid, or wipe it off the rim, so you can put the lid on onto a clean surface, because you really want that sticky stuff on the lid to secure to the glass. And I'll talk about that after we're done canning. You can tell if these sealed or not, because there's a little bubble up here that sinks down when they're sealing. So, and we'll talk about that more after we can. So we got 20 jars. Our canners take 7 each, so 14 at a time, because I have 2 canners. So we're going to do 1 session, and then we'll do a second session with 1 pot, and we'll get all this canned today. But yeah, we took a taste of it. It's fantastic. It's medium, which we like. Don't want it too hot, don't want it too mild. And this is right in the middle for heat. So yeah, it looks really good, tastes really good, and we're gonna get some canned so we can put them on the shelf and keep them for, well, it'll probably last us about a year, especially if we do another session, which we probably will when we get our own veggies out of the garden. We'll end up with 40 cans of salsa, which is good for us, and we'll probably give a few away too. So off to the canning process. So a few things about the canning process. I use Denali canners, pressure canners, but I don't represent them. They're not a sponsor of mine. I don't have any sponsors actually, and I just like them, and they're not super expensive. They do a good job, but you can use any type of canner you want. And this is a warning. Follow the directions that come with your pressure canner. What I'm going to do today is what Denali recommends, but every pressure canner has slightly different directions. So make sure
you follow the directions on your pressure canner, because these things, if they build up too much pressure, they can be like a bomb. So you want to follow the directions. And some other things, I use wide mouth quart jars most of the time, but use whatever jar you want. If you have a small family, use pint jars. If you like smallmouth jars, then use smallmouth jars. Everybody has their own style, their own way of doing things. I personally like quart jars and largemouth lids. That's just me. So to start with the canning process with these Denali's, you want to fill these pots with 2 inches of water. Sometimes they give you it in quarts, but the amount of quarts that Denali says is 2 inches of water. So there's an inch. And I put that salsa in there cold, so we don't want to heat the water up until the jars are in there already. And the water and the salsa in the jar will heat up together. If you put cold product in boiling hot water, you may crack your jars. So you got to put hot with hot or cold with cold. I always do cold with cold. So after I get 2 inches of water, I also take some white vinegar and a couple teaspoons, a couple tablespoons, doesn't really matter. Just some white vinegar in there. The white vinegar, all that does is keep the outside of your jars from getting cloudy. If you don't put the white vinegar in, it's going to work just fine. You'll just have this like white film on your jars. So if you're using them for yourself, it doesn't really matter. If you're doing this to sell stuff, then it might matter. So I have all 14 jars out here. And you just want to set them in the pot. It's going to be pretty tight, and you're going to have just a smidgen of space between each jar. You don't want the jars touching, but they get really close together. Just get them in here. They don't quite touch, but they are very close. And then one in the middle. And this is the lid. There's a vent hole right here. I always take a good look through it. Make sure you can see light on the other side. You don't want that plugged. And when we start, the vent hole is left open. So you're just going to let these heat up on high heat. And what's going to happen is out of this vent hole, you're going to start seeing steam come out of it. Once the steam starts to come out of it, you want to let the steam flow out of it for 10 minutes before you put this on. This is the weight. Once you put the weight on, then the pressure starts to build up. And we'll talk about that once I go to put this on. Again, warning, follow the directions on your pressure canner. You can listen to me, you can get an idea of how to do it, but follow the directions on your pressure canner. Follow the directions for your make and model, because they're all a little different, and I don't want anybody to have an accident. People also water bath can. I don't know anything about water bath canning. All I do is pressure can. And when this starts steaming, I'll see you in a few minutes. So the steam has been coming out of these vents for 10 minutes now. So at this time I can put on the weights. There we go. weights are going to do is they're going to start to build the pressure. They stop the steam from coming out, and the pressure is going to start building on the gauges. And I'll bring this around and show you. So there's the gauge, and that gauge gets to 11 pounds. Then I'm going to start, actually probably a little bit before 11 pounds, I'll start turning the heat down, and we want to keep it at between 11 and 13 pounds for 90 minutes, at which point we'll turn the heat off. So we're just going to watch this rise. So it takes about a half hour to heat the pot and get 10 minutes of steam to come out of it, and then an hour and a half of cooking time at 11 to 13 pounds, and then it takes half hour, 40 minutes for the pot to cool down on its own. On these pots there's a safety valve, and when that safety valve goes down, then you know that the pressure is at 0, and you'll be able to take the lid of the canning pot off, and you'll have your jars of salsa all sealed. So again, follow the directions of your canner. Don't, you can listen to me just for an example, but you got to follow the directions for your canner so that you don't have a bad accident while you're canning. This one's starting to rise already. This one hasn't come off 0 yet. But they will, and I just gotta watch them. For some reason that burner, I don't know, it always goes faster than this one. So I get them both to 11 pounds, and when they're both at 11 pounds, I'll start the 90-minute clock. But we'll get back to you soon. So this canner's up to 11 pounds, so we're gonna start slowly reducing the heat until it stabilizes. So I've gone from a 9 to a 7 and now a 7 to a 5 on my range top. And it's going to continue to rise slowly. When it gets to 12 or 13 pounds, I'll put it down to a 3. And that's probably going to stabilize it. Eventually, I'll end up at a 2. But it's going to take a little while before I can get there. But you want to keep it 11 to 13 pounds for an hour and a half. Well, it's been an hour and a half, and it is time to turn off the heat. And over the next 30 to 40 minutes, these will cool down on their own. You can't rush it. And when it gets down to 0 pounds of pressure, the security valve right here will drop, and that'll allow me to open the lids. And hopefully all the cans, all the jars are still intact. So the safety valve on this first one has dropped. You can see the gauge is at 0 pounds, and the safety valve is down, unlike this one where the safety valve is still up. Even though it's at 0 pounds, you can't open it till that safety valve drops, like that one, at least on these canners. Like I said, read your instructions and follow the directions for your canner, but this is how my Denali canner works. So now we're going to crack this one open, and we'll hopefully see jars that are still intact. So here we go. When you open this, turn the lid to the unlock position, and then always get to the unlock position, not quite there yet. Always open it away from you, because there is water and hot steam that's going to billow out. And we have 7 jars that are intact, and they are ready to be removed from the canner. And that's what we do with them. We just set them on a towel on a table. And you do have to be careful with this because some tables, even if you set them on a towel, they're going to burn through. I know this table doesn't, but my other table, I had a towel or 2 towels down, and that's what it did to it. So you gotta know that your table's going to take it, or put it on a table that's not wood with enamel on it. But that's the finished product, and you can see that, I don't know if you can see it, but that stuff's still boiling in there. And the liquid in this is going to be very hot for quite a while. So you just want to leave them overnight. And as they seal, this little bump at the top will become flat, or actually concave. And then you'll know that they sealed properly. And you'll actually hear them click when they do seal properly. So that's all of the original 14, both canning pots. And if you heard that, I don't know if you heard that or not, but that was a jar sealing. You could hear it click. In fact, it's this one right here. That is concave now. You can see the dimple or the indent versus this one, which is still pushed up, hasn't sealed yet. But this one just sealed. And I haven't had a jar not seal yet, so hopefully they'll all seal. If they don't seal, you just replace the lid. You can use the same screw on top, but you need a new lid, and you just recan it, and it's fine that way. It'll seal. But now we're off to canning these last 5 salsas and these 2 jars of peas. So we'll be doing this for another couple hours this evening. But that is how you make and can salsa. And I hope everybody has a good evening, and we'll see you next time on Vermont Homesteader.